Thanks for joining me, everyone, as I summarize this book by Rudolf Steiner entitled Knowledge of the Higher Worlds and Its Attainment. Here's a copy. These recently sold out on Amazon, but you can order them from other websites, or you can watch this. I'm actually including a lot more information here that's not included in this book because I've read so many other books by Rudolf Steiner, and we're going to be going over some more books and stuff like that as we move forward. It's a little bit late this evening, but we're certainly going to keep moving forward here. And so before we continue where we left off last week, I just want to briefly introduce and summarize the higher worlds. When we talk about knowledge of the higher worlds and its attainment, what are we talking about, right? So, what we're actually talking about is knowing the etheric world, which is another part of the physical world. Then above that is the astral world, also known as the astral plane. And then at the very top, the first highest world is the spiritual world, which also we refer to it as Devachan. So those are the three worlds that we talk about when we talk about knowledge of the higher worlds and its attainment. So you'll notice that inner tranquility is something that I mentioned last week. I said that's where we're going to pick up, and we're going to pick up where we left off last week. And I said that's where we're going to continue, and that's what we'll do now. And so when we talk about inner tranquility, we're talking about inner peace. Inner peace. And now I want to present to everybody the three laws. So there's three laws, and I have them listed here. So the first is all knowledge must be pursued for humanity's for the purpose of humanity's cosmic development. You'll see I wrote that here. Must be pursued for the purpose of furthering humanity's development. And then number two, veneration and developing a rich inner life. So that's the second law. It just has to. There's no way around it. It just has to happen in order for this stuff to happen and to develop spiritually and to be able to know the higher worlds. And then three, infringe upon no one's free will. So as you can see, the three laws. First, all knowledge pursued for personal learning and the accumulation of wealth leads you away from the path, but all knowledge pursued to support humanity's cosmic development brings you a step further. And so that's the first one. And I just read that little part out of the book there. But most of this I'm kind of summarizing and wording myself. But I will read occasionally out of the book. And then, number 2, we talked about developing veneration last week as well as a rich inner life and developing inner tranquility. And I talked about we're going to continue this week with inner tranquility. Also, you can think of it as inner peace, and that is a essential part of developing a rich inner life. Meditation exercises, as well as retrospective self-improvement behavioral exercises, like, for example, controlling anger, are also important. And they're also part of number 2, developing a rich inner life. And then 3, we'll move on to 3. The third law states that we are required to adopt our actions and frame our words in such a way that we don't infringe upon anybody's free will. So Rosicrucians never force anyone to do anything, not physically, nor by coercion. So we don't try to argue people into doing what we want. We don't do that. Actually, we don't argue at all. That's another thing that we don't do. So those are the 3 laws here. So we're talking about inner tranquility, and the book says establish for yourselves moments of inner tranquility, and in these moments learn to distinguish between what's essential in life and what's not essential, especially when you're considering your spiritual development and improving yourself. Rudolf Steiner also says all of this stuff was originally spoken through a sign language, and we're going to talk more about the sign language in a few minutes in the next part. So meditation, we're going to talk a little bit more about, and at least 5 minutes a day. At least 5 minutes a day. So, getting back to the importance of number 2, developing a rich inner life and inner peace or tranquility. Dr. Steiner prescribes a daily routine of at least 5 minutes per day of meditation. The key is to not miss any days, and don't just restrict yourself to only 5 minutes. Just do at least 5 minutes each day, but the longer you meditate, the better. I personally meditate for at least 5 minutes per day, but usually I meditate for around 30 minutes. Sometimes I meditate for as long as 45 minutes or so. But I make sure that if 5 minutes is all I can spare, I meditate every single day for at least 5 minutes. Meditation can be done anytime, but it's most effective early. Try to do it within an hour or two after you wake up. Especially if you can do it within an hour, that's really good. In addition to the 5 minute meditation or longer, a minimum of 5 minute meditation, we do another evening inner exercise in the evening that I like to call retrospection, where you look back at your day in reverse order. So I call this exercise retrospection. And so, and that's where you look back at your day in reverse order, beginning with what you were just doing most recently. So we must develop the inner tranquility to judge ourselves. So that's another reason why we develop the inner tranquility. And going back to what you do is you look back at the day in reverse order from the most recent what you were doing most recently, and then you go back to all the way back to when you first woke up, and you go back as far as you can. If you fall asleep, that's actually a good thing. When you look back during the retrospection exercise, you look back as though you are somebody else, not yourself, because what you're doing is you're judging yourself, looking for ways that you could have maybe done things differently. Because what you're doing is the purpose of it is for you're looking for ways to improve and to make sure that you're following the things that you're supposed to be following, as far as behavioral and as far as exercising and the way you interact with others. And so if you don't have a lot of karma keeping you awake, you should fall asleep quickly. And if you do, that's perfectly fine. If you're advanced to a certain degree, you can then begin your evening dream work on the astral plane after you fall asleep. But I like the term higher self better because everybody has a higher self, not just males. It applies to females as well. But I know that groups like, for example, the 5%ers, um, and even in some of the deeper Wu Sabat teachings, they'll talk about a higher self as well. So Rudolf Steiner goes on to explain how every human has a higher being within them that remains asleep until awakened by the methods that we're introducing here. Remember last week I referred to this as occult or esoteric training, which I prefer to refer to as spiritual science because spiritual science describes it more accurately. As Dr. Steiner explains in this book, um, this stuff is no more of a secret than writing is to someone who hasn't learned to write. Therefore, it really isn't accurate to refer to it as occult or hidden or secret. And as you can see, we break everything down that has to do with not just the spirit, but the physical. We break it all down to a science, so that's why we call it spiritual science. And the book says for every human being bears a higher man within himself besides what we may call um, the day man. Rudolf Steiner goes on to explain how the higher self is asleep, and most it has to be awakened in order to be able to see and experience higher worlds. And Dr. Steiner talks about developing this organ of sight that I often talk about. And he's talking about a third eye or inner sight, also known as clairvoyance. So I can explain it a little more than the book is because I talk about this all the time. And it's from me reading all of his other books and stuff like that. And then there's also clairaudience, being able to hear the spiritual world. This is developed alongside clairvoyance. Um, so, improved work. So um, improved person and improved work. And Dr. Steiner explains how Rosicrucians don't quit their jobs and become monks secluded in some cave, forest, or monastery. On the contrary, we are to keep up our work and duties as usual, and we are to improve ourselves. And as we improve ourselves, our work and our profession will also improve. And as you develop spiritually, you will begin to gain control over your life and the world around you, rather than just being led by circumstances and external influences. This spiritual development will actually react on your entire being in a very powerful way. It'll have a profound impact on your life. If you practice all of this stuff, it will assist the development of your higher self. And this higher self will be patient and will not let things of the outer world have an effect unless it's desired. And the higher man also won't let others make him angry. So you overcome anger. So we're actually talking about a totally new and improved outlook on life and attitude toward life. And then eventually you begin to realize that you are a citizen of more than just this physical world. And Dr. Steiner says that the higher man is now the inner ruler who directs the circumstances of the outer man. And previously we talked about caring for the development of all of humanity, but now as we develop spiritually, we become closer and closer to the spiritual world and spiritual beings, so that now our love and our concern isn't just for humanity alone, but for all beings, not just the human being. And so there comes a certain point in time where the student realizes that he is a citizen of higher worlds, and more so. As you go on, you realize that you're more of a citizen of higher worlds than you are of this physical world. So I wrote meditation, gnosis, and which is the means to acquiring supersensible knowledge. And so acquiring full clairvoyance, it actually can take a lifetime of work and effort. It comes in stages. And one of the first things that happens is you will acquire improved discernment. That's probably I would say the first major stage of developing clairvoyance is suddenly you have really improved discernment. Which is to say that you are able to judge things. You're a good judge of things. You can tell the difference between truth, what's true and false, or what's right and wrong, things like that. But you're able to see clearly, maybe a little more so than most people, a lot more so actually. Especially when it comes to discerning what's true from what's not true. And another thing that will happen is lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming, actually being aware and conscious while you're dreaming, is another stage of developing clairvoyance. So it's another thing that you go through as you're developing clairvoyance, and it's actually an early stage of clairvoyance, lucid dreaming, improved discernment, and then of course seeing the aura, being able to see the aura around other people. And then there's also clairaudience, hearing the spiritual world. Both of those also come before you develop full clairvoyance. But once you're able to see the aura, you're getting close. So here we're going to look at the 3 stages of initiation, which are also known as the lesser mysteries. And we'll start with number 1, preparation, which develops the spiritual senses. And so preparation consists of cultivating a certain strict life of thought and feeling, through which the psycho-spiritual body becomes equipped with higher senses and organs. So a certain exercise is prescribed here by Steiner. This meditation exercise consists of focusing on the moon and death, fading and dying, plant life, flowers withering, and decaying, the cold weather, dark winter night, for example. You can meditate on a barren and desolate landscape. That's what I do. Think of the moon and death. But then after that, you're supposed to focus on the opposite. Focus on life, light, warmth, the sun. So the moon is associated with forces of death, but now we're meditating on the sun, which has to do with the forces of life and everything that's related to light, life, warmth, and you can meditate on plant life growing, flourishing, on a nice hot summer day. And that's basically that exercise. Meditate on the moon and death, and then also on the sun and life, as I described. Of course, like always, be sure to meditate hydrated, as spirit moves through water. And before you begin any exercise, relax your body and clear your mind until you're almost dozing off and you're about to fall. You feel like you're about to fall asleep. I refer to that as a meditative state, and that's actually an altered state of consciousness. And when you do these exercises while you're in a meditative state, it actually has a very extremely powerful effect. And so I recommend meditating seated with your back up as straight as possible. People who can't sit up can meditate laying down on their back if they choose. But I recommend keeping your back straight and sitting up like Steiner instructs. Next, we're going to talk about the power of thought. I'm not going to write it on there, but we'll talk about the power of thought. So it's important to control our thoughts and feelings. Negative thoughts and feelings will actually connect you to negative spiritual beings with negative consequences. But positive thoughts and feelings will connect you to positive spiritual beings and positive consequences. And this is interesting, and it's something that I like to talk about. And this is something that Dr. Robert Gilbert, rest in peace, before he passed away, he often talked about this as well. And so next we're going to go over number 2, enlightenment. And so enlightenment kindles the spiritual light. And the first step is by conducting certain exercises that involve another kind of meditation. And so this meditation involves observation with the eyes open, and also inner contemplation on 3 objects: a crystal, a plant, and an animal. And I think I have room here for that. So a crystal, a plant, and an animal. And we're to also ponder and contemplate the differences between these 3 different things. A crystal, a plant, and an animal. And you can this particular exercise, this meditation, you can do with your eyes open, seated, and obviously you could look at a crystal, and spend time looking at that and contemplating that. And then you could look at a plant and do that as well. And then you can contemplate the difference between the crystal and the plant. And then you can do the same thing with an animal, like a pet cat or a pet dog, or even looking out the window, you see a bird or something, and you can meditate. And then that's basically that exercise. And then there's another one where sound is developed. So the student also develops new ears for listening as they contemplate and meditate on sounds, like the difference, for example, between sound coming from something that's living, like an animal, compared to the sound coming from a bell, for example. You can also meditate on the sound of wind. So the student practices certain behavioral exercises as well. For example, one exercise involves observation and I'm talking about observation in like public and social settings. Another exercise that involves observation where you it involves listening to others unconditionally without a comeback or a rebuttal or a reply, just listening. So this exercise is especially effective with children, where you just listen and allow them to talk without replying or correcting them. And this particular exercise is not only beneficial to you as far as developing and with what we're talking about here, but it would also be beneficial to the spiritual development of the child or whoever it is that you're allowing to talk and you're just listening. It's actually a form of it could be a form of therapy or therapeutic in some situations as well. And then, so third, we're going to go over initiation last. And initiation establishes a connection to higher spiritual beings. And so, initiation is the highest stage that can be presented publicly. And so, preparation, enlightenment, and initiation are part of what are known as the lesser mysteries. And some of you may be familiar with ancient Egypt, where in ancient Egypt, of course, there were the lesser mysteries and the greater mysteries. And then, so next we're going to talk about obstacles and trials. And there are obstacles and trials that must be completed and overcome. So first is the fire trial. And the fire trial consists of acquiring a true vision. Okay, so I wrote this stuff on here for you to make it a little bit easier. The only thing is I should have put the air trial up top. That's okay. So we're going to start with, obviously we're talking about the obstacles and the trials that I just mentioned a moment ago. And so the first one is the fire trial, and has to do with acquiring true vision. And then the next one is interesting. It's the water trial. And this gets into something that I'm learning a lot about now, and that is acquiring the occult script. And so this book doesn't talk all about the occult script. It talks a little bit about it, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about it. And what I did was I drew a symbol. This is on the board. This is the symbol right here for the occult script. But before I talk about that, I just want to tell you real quick, the occult script is a new sign language that consists of certain sacred geometric figures. And so, for example, this is the occult script, the symbol for the occult script. And some of you may recognize it as this zodiacal symbol for the sign Cancer. So this is this zodiacal symbol for the sign Cancer. But actually, here's three sacred geometry signs right here. I have them. It's artwork, but they were created by Rudolf Steiner, and today's Monday, so I'll show you one of them now up close. And this is the sacred geometric shape for the moon. So I just wanted to show that maybe up close. Some of you may find that interesting. Sound judgment. So sound judgment is essential for completing the water trial. And then last is the air trial. Having risen above, now follow the spirit. So the candidate or the student is faced with themselves during the air trial, as external factors no longer influence or serve as an incentive for them. The student now exclusively supports themselves with no need of any other support. So this is referred to as the air trial. And so during the air trial, the candidate must not get lost in themselves, but it's important that they listen to the spirit and let the spirit guide them. And then upon successfully passing the air trial, the student is permitted to enter the temple of higher wisdom. So now we're going to talk about the drought of forgetfulness. I like to refer to it as the draft of forgetfulness. And so the candidate undergoes a symbolic draft of forgetfulness, and then also a draft of remembrance as well. And I know Rudolf Steiner uses the word drought, but I like draft better. Dr. Robert Gilbert often talked about this, and he referred to it as the draft of forgetfulness. Now, many different traditions that include initiation ceremonies include a symbolic draft of forgetfulness or a symbolic death as well. For example, in Freemasonry, also in Christianity, with Jesus symbolically raising John the Evangelist and then renaming him Lazarus after he raised him. And in Christianity, we die to our old ways, and then we're born again in Christ. And what we'll do is we'll continue again next week with, and I hope you liked it. Thanks for watching.